You shouldn't talk about the Grok stuff before we get into the section, but it's just like so angry and depressed about it all week. So
Oh, it's very depressing. I mean, like, it does seem like we unfortunately have, like, kind of a depressing lineup on the docket today, so
the last one, at least, I think is mildly interesting and
yeah.
not totally negative, where the
Yeah,
rest of it
yeah,
is just like, this is depressing. So
yeah.
as a great sell, I'm sure that's going to be a great lead for a podcast there, right? At the end, we might get to something that's not totally depressing. Stick
Yeah,
with
yeah.
us. Hello and welcome to the Fast and Broken podcast, where we take a critical look at the fast-moving world of tech and online culture. I'm Carly Rector, a software engineer and startup founder who really hasn't used Twitter actively in like a year, which is much better for my mental health, but I am mad about it every time that I think about being forced to do that, because it's like, it shouldn't be my responsibility to not be on Twitter. It should be Twitter's responsibility to not suck. So
Yes. And I'm Teresa Kramer, an MBA student, project manager, and semi-professional voice actor who also like remembers the nice heyday of Twitter when everything was like, you could meet new friends from other places, and it was just like a good social networking site to use. And oh, how the
And
mighty have
even when it was
fallen.
only a like mildly bad social network or like
Yeah.
medium bad was okay,
hmm
like 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah, because you had content tools you could use to kind of moderate your experience and sort of, like, tailor it to what you wanted it to be, but no, like, ever since Elon's gotten his hands on it, it's just gone absolutely downhill.
More dramatically than I would have ever thought. Like, I've said
Right.
this before, I forget if on this podcast, but like when he first acquired it, I was like, well, like that's bad, but just like a guy owning a platform, like there's only so much that he can do to Twitter. He's not going to like destroy it. And I vastly underestimated the level to which he could destroy it.
Yeah, yeah, a very unfortunate circumstance to have to eat your words there, but
Yeah. Well, I didn't expect he was going to come in and fire 3/4 of the people and completely destroy
mhm,
it actively. I thought he was
yeah,
just going to like continue running it in some slightly more lackluster way, but
but
shows what I
no.
know.
Mhm.
So yes, topics for today. Obviously, we're going to talk about Twitter and Grok's deepfake epidemic, which has been a big topic for the last couple weeks already. We're recording this for posterity on Friday, January 9th. Hopefully, by the time we have posted this podcast, more better things will have happened. I can dream.
Yeah.
Um, but for the sake of time stamping this a little bit, since some stuff did happen this morning already. Um,
Mhm.
so we'll talk about that for a while. Then we're going to talk about more Polymarket war betting, and in particular, uh, Venezuela betting and some follow-ups on that.
Mhm.
And then we're going to talk about something at least mildly interesting and less deeply depressing, as mentioned, which is some stuff's on shutting down data centers in times of high electricity demand and how people are talking about potentially approaching that, which
Uh-huh.
is interesting to me for having worked on some energy related stuff at Amazon in the past. And let's start with, I guess, the overview. If people have not been following this or hearing about it so far, it is I guess you could call it a trend. When you at Grok on Twitter, you can interact with it and request image generation or image modification. So one of the things that
Mhm.
people have decided to do is in the replies of existing images of people, they will say at Grok, put her in a bikini, or at Grok, take her clothes off, etc. And it is mostly of women or sometimes underage girls. It is often
Mhm.
of just like random people, but also like celebrities, politicians, etc. Um,
Yeah.
this has been going on Twitter for a long time. I think some of the reporting I saw the earliest incidents of it were like June or July last year that people were doing this, but it just like got super popular. Like it became a meme over like the week between Christmas and New Year's, and has continued to gain steam, especially as Twitter's ex, Elon Musk, has said
Mhm.
nothing about it to speak of, although he did put himself in a bikini and talk about putting a SpaceX rocket in a bikini, and basically
Mm.
like treating the whole thing as a joke very lightheartedly. and not responding to it. The only real things that we've gotten from it is like Twitter's safety account did post that if people use Grok to generate illegal content, they will be liable in the same way that they would if they had posted it, meaning the actual
Mhm.
like CSAM does seem to have be eventually taken down. It can take like 48 to 72 hours, but some of the worst stuff is being taken down eventually. But a lot of it is not, and some of the people interviewed just like tried reporting it and got back that like there's no violation of policy here, basically. So it's just
Yeah.
it's real bad, and like the quantity. One of the articles that we have linked here is titled Musk's Grok AI generated thousands of undressed images per hour on X. And that's some reporting that basically went through like just Grok's feed, because this is all happening in public. And you
Yeah.
can go to the Grok account and see what it's been posting, the replies it's been posting. And someone did that and noticed that it was generating about 6,700 images an hour, uh,
Mm.
identified as sexually suggestive or nudifying for a particular 24-hour period from January 5th to 6th. So that's just like a ridiculous amount of stuff. And if you look at some of the other like deep fake porn sites that exist on the internet, it's a couple orders of magnitude bigger in terms of
Yeah.
quantity. And again, it's all happening in public in people's actual replies. So you could be just like a normal person who posted a picture of yourself like out to dinner or whatever, and some rando could come into your replies and say at Grok put her in a bikini, and it would just do that.
Mhm.
Um it's just real
Yeah.
bad.
It's real bad. It's real yeah, it just, like it reminds me of, like, I can't like, I'm searching now, and I wish I had thought to look this up before we got started, but, like, there was, like I can't remember what outlet it was, but some outlet ran a story with the headline,
Yeah, the
um
Financial Times ran one that is called "Who's Who at X," the deep fake porn site formerly known as Twitter.
there you
And
go, that was
that's the
it.
Financial
Yes.
Times. So like
Yeah,
no.
yeah, yeah.
um yeah, and just like 404 Media has a lot of good reporting on this. I feel like a lot of the mainstream reporting is very much just like people are putting people in bikinis, and that I feel like really understates the level of harassment and also like weird pornographicness of it that some of it
Yeah,
is. Like, first of
yeah,
all, a stranger getting an AI to put you in a bikini is already bad. But second of
right.
all, some of them are doing things like put them in a dental floss bikini in because like technically Grok is
Mhm.
not supposed to generate nude images.
Yeah.
But people try and
People
jailbreak
get
it,
around it, though.
get
People get
around it.
around it. Like, it's
Yeah.
that's one of those things where it's just like, if you think that people are not going to try and get around those, like, I've got a bridge I want to like it's like what are you doing? No, it's disgusting and it's despicable. And like didn't I see like one of them was just like it's like no, it's not just like putting girls in bikinis. It's also just like oh like, you know, make her pregnant or like do this, do that. It's just
Yeah,
like it's just
here's
turning into a weird fetishizing porn site basically.
yeah, here's one example of a quote that they got, which is make her wear clear tapes with tiny black sensor bar covering her private part, protecting her privacy, and make her chest and hips grow large as she's squatting with leg open widely facing back while head turning back looking to camera, is one of the prompts. Um
Mm,
and yeah, like there's some and that's just the stuff that is on Grok itself. The other thing that 404 Media
yeah.
reports on is that like again, replying to Grok or adding Grok on Twitter is one way that you can do it. But
Yeah.
you can also just go to the Grok site, and there are a lot of like underground communities about how to use that to
Mhm.
jailbreak it. And there are a lot more disturbing and explicit stuff coming out of Grok, not on Twitter specifically. Or
Yeah.
they could still be posted to Twitter, but not quite as easily. The one thing that did happen this morning that is the new reporting is that he has paywalled it, or he has paywalled specifically adding Grok and asking for image generation. So you
Mm,
have to have a paid account on Twitter for it. But that is
right.
only per this Verge article if you're actually just like talking to Grok to do it. You can still just like click the button yourself if you want to. And that's the only action that we've seen taken on it.
Yeah. Yeah, which is, like, not really acceptable because that just means that you're monetizing it instead of, like,
Yes.
actually doing anything about it, which is,
W-
like I,
Latest is a quote
yeah.
from spokesperson for the UK Prime Minister, which says the move simply turns an AI feature that allows the creation of unlawful images into a premium service. It is not a
Right.
solution. It's insulting to victims of misogyny and sexual violence, which is like, yeah.
Yeah. And I'm like, honestly, like, and I would argue kind of makes them more liable now because they're like, oh, we know this is happening. We've just made it paid. So now we're making money off of it. And it's just
Yeah.
like, okay, cool. So you would like to make money off of sexually explicit content that depicts minors? I've got a lawsuit for you. It's like,
Yes.
that's something that's pretty explicitly illegal.
I hope many people have lawsuits for them. It sounds like
Yeah.
Europe, the UK,
Hmm.
and EU in general have put out some pretty strong statements that this is extremely illegal.
Yeah.
Um, but unclear if anyone in the US is going to do anything about it.
Yeah. I mean, quite frankly, at this point in time, it's like, save us, EU. Like, I don't expect any kind of like federal action from the US government on this kind of thing. It's like
Yeah,
maybe
so
state action, but
the
yeah.
so the other interesting and relevant thing is like Congress
Hmm.
did pass the Take It Down Act last year,
Mm.
which is specifically focused on non-consensual AI imagery and because like all platforms need to have a way to report it and they need to like respond and take it down within 48 hours or something like that. I forget what the time
Hmm.
is. That doesn't go
Yeah.
into effect until May, but like
Hmm.
that is a law that is already pending that if it was in effect now, all of this
This would
would
all be,
definitely be violating. So,
yeah. Yeah.
and that's a federal law. They did something
Yeah.
like, but
I mean, I guess like that is one of those things. Like the hypocrisy of these like ultra right conservatives is just so weird in so many ways because it's like, I mean, you have what is basically a pedophile in the White House, and yet it's like one of their rallying cries is protect the children. So
mhm.
it's you wind up in this sort of situation where it's like Elon is basically, you know, giving his blessing to like sexually explicit images of people's children, and like if the base's rallying cry is like, oh, we have to like protect the children, whatever. It's like, what are you going to do about that? It's just very blatantly open hypocrisy in
Yeah.
just this way that I don't feel like their base is really going to call them on in a way that means anything. The fact that we do it, at least have something on the books, I guess, makes me like the slightest modicum of hopeful. But also, like I said, like I'm way more hopeful that like UK and the EU does something more about it because those are places that have
Yeah.
better standards of consumer protection.
The other thing that I saw pointed out is like any private victim here could in fact sue X over this. And
Yeah.
in most cases, like social media platforms have immunity from Section 230 for stuff that's
Hmm.
posted on this. But that
Yeah.
probably doesn't apply in this case. There was a Bloomberg Law, I think, article on this, which is like,
Mm.
but it's the platform itself that's generating it in this case.
Yeah, this isn't a user making a post that lives on the platform. This is the platform generating the thing, and it's not just that now. It is now the platform offering this as, like, to our point previously, a paid premium service
Yep.
that is available to its users. And so I do feel like that kind of takes you out of the purview of Section 230. I don't know. It's like I would love to see them get fined a bunch of money. I would love to see this like
Yeah.
tank their stock, but I don't think it's going to because it's again just the state of the country that we're in right now. Yeah.
On the Hard Fork podcast, they were talking about how blatant hypocrisy it is. Because if it was
Yeah.
some brand new startup that was doing this, it would be gone.
Right.
And
Right.
like one of the other things, like, X app is still on the Apple and Google app stores, and like they will
Mhm.
take down like anything that is like slightly questionable,
Yeah.
especially the Apple App Store. But then they would get Elon Musk mad at them, and then they would get like JD Vance mad at them, and like
Right.
but it's because it's Elon Musk that people are really hesitant to call him out on it
Yeah.
specifically.
Yeah,
And
which is
it's
just like
like,
it's gross. Yeah, cuz like
yeah,
yeah, there's the whole like issue and problem that's been going on with payment processors and like OnlyFans and stuff like that. Like the reason why like Tumblr doesn't have explicit content anymore is because they're like, oh, the app store and our payment processors
yeah,
and nobody's like going to support us if we have sexually explicit content on the platform. But yeah, it's like Elon's just doing it and he's encouraging it and making jokes about it. He's also monetizing it. And so he's explicitly making it like, something that you pay to have on the platform. So it's just sort of like, where, like, why aren't
Do
Visa?
we have a
Yeah,
line?
yeah,
Like, if there is
yeah.
any line, I feel like it should come up here.
Right, right. Yeah. Yeah, like to your point, yeah, it just really highlights the hypocrisy, but also like then just highlights the cowardice of
Yeah.
everybody else involved in this. Cause it's like, yeah, like quite frankly, I think if Apple wanted to take a stand here and ban X on the App Store, that would be awesome.
Mhm.
Like, I feel like they would win so much like cultural cachet with like the anti Musk audience, but also like, you know, they're in the right. If Musk came after them, they're in the right. And so it's like, what repercussions are you afraid of? But they won't because they're like, oh no, but like he'll do something, he'll be mean to us, and it's just like we don't want to risk it. And I'm just like, oh my god, have a fraction of a spine,
Yeah.
please. It's like it's showing people that you're just like a pushover and coward, like you're just a bunch of cowards, and it's
Yeah,
just really kind of frustrating to like exist in that sort of
it's
space.
going back to some stuff we were talking about before, which is like, if we're gonna live in this techno oligarchy, then the leaders of these companies need to have some social responsibility and be able to, like,
Right.
be leaders and take stances on things. And I
Yeah.
think because of how companies work, they don't want to, because Apple's just like,
Yeah.
no, it would be bad for our business to kick one of the biggest apps that exist off of our app store, and it would be bad for business to get the backlash from the White House about it,
Mhm.
which is probably all true.
But, like,
But
I would argue not necessarily true is a thing, is that, like, I would argue that, like, yeah, okay, there might be repercussions to those actions. I'd argue you'd probably win more people over than, like, lose people in
well,
terms of,
especially
like, your
because they
actual
have an
bottom
international
line.
audience, like, it's not
Yeah.
even
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, like, doing this will signal to, like, everybody else in the world that you're not part of, like, the, like, fascist regime that's building itself as in America. It's like, you'd be indicating to, like, all sorts of other countries, "We actually believe in standing up for what's right," and I would argue that that is, like, and again, to this point, we talked about a couple weeks ago, the things that are measurable versus unmeasurable when it comes to how we're making decisions in this weird stage of capitalism. It's like that is an unmeasurable, but man, it's a big one. Like, it's like I feel
Yeah.
like it's arguably like you might not be able to like put it on paper right now and say it's going to like, make us that much money. But I'd be willing to bet dollars to donuts if you did it, you'd make more money than you lose. I think quite
Mhm.
honestly, the people who are doing poorly are like Target
Yeah.
and like other companies that like are explicitly kind of bending over backwards to appease this, like quite frankly, vocal minority. And so it's just sort of like my God, like have morals, have principles, be willing to
Yeah.
stand up for what's right. And I do, and like you will be on the right side of history. And I think that there is a good amount of your user base that will recognize that you are doing what is right and will like reward you for it by continuing to use your services.
Yeah, and, like, Apple is especially frustrating. Apple in general, like, historically, Apple has stood up to government pressure in a lot of ways
Yeah.
for, like, privacy and safety and stuff. They do a
Yeah.
lot of things where it's like, stand up against laws that, like, you have to put a backdoor for into your operating system so the government can access it. They will not do that, and, like, had to, like, remove a service from, like, somewhere in the EU because they were like, didn't do that. So, like, actually took some amount of business hit in order to stand up for that.
Hmm.
And just, like, they've done a lot of that in general,
Yeah.
and also are known for being relatively prudish about what they allow in the App Store, to, like,
Yeah.
not even for, like, the best in some cases. I think they kinda have gone too far with that in the past.
Oh, yeah,
But
100%.
so that just makes it so wild that it's like, "Oh, what? What are you doing?"
Yeah, yeah. Is it just because you're buddy-buddy with Elon? Like, really? Like, that's all that it boils down to is kind of what it feels like. It's frustrating. I think that, like, if you were to poll people, people would generally uniformly agree that this is not an acceptable thing for a social media site to do. It's not an acceptable thing for like one of the biggest AI engines to do, but I'm not seeing a whole lot of pushback on it from institutions
Mhm.
as opposed to like, because like people, everybody who I talk to,
Yeah.
like, individually is like, I hate this. I've not seen like payment processors refusing to process the payments for, like Super Grok or whatever. I'm not seeing Apple like, uh, ban them from the App Store. We're not really seeing, um, at least in the US, any lawmakers really like a hard stance against this. And it's just kind of like that's kind of like the more depressing part about it.
Yeah, I was gonna say definitely no US institutions are speaking out against it, which is just like, it's
Yeah.
crazy. It's crazy. Oh, the other thing that I wanted to talk about is the reporting on it,
Mm.
which 404 Media has also done some reporting on the reporting on it. And in particular, like, reporters are having some difficulties because uh, X does not reply to reporters. They changed their press
Mm.
autoresponder apparently from a poop emoji, which it was for a while, to something else for a short period of time, and now currently auto replies with legacy media lies
Mm.
immediately. And that's what, like, that was the only quote that a lot of these articles have is like, we asked for comment and got an autoresponder that said like legacy media lies.
Mm.
Some of the other ones I read said like they did not respond substantively, basically, 'cause they're just like not saying anything about it. But then some of them would report on the fact that Grok said things about it. So there's a bunch of reporting that's like Grok apologizes for generating these images or whatever. And it's like, that that's not how it works. It's a chatbot. It can't
Mhm.
apologize for things. Like, not only in the sense that it has no actual responsibility or moral, like, regard for things and therefore cannot apologize, it doesn't know what's going on. Like,
Yeah.
it's not saying anything about what is actually happening at the company or about anyone's actual, like, policies. It's just a chatbot, and it's saying the things that seem like they should be a plausible response when you ask it a question.
Mhm.
And so it's somewhat irresponsible to headline your article, Grok apologizes for generating all of these images. Because, like, the fact that it
Yeah.
responded to one person one time and was like, oh, yes, I'm sorry, we're working on it, does not mean it's sorry. And it does not mean they're working on
No.
it. It's a chatbot.
No. Yeah, it
Yes.
made that up because that's what it thought you wanted to hear, and like
Yeah.
we've been over this very, very ad nauseum that chatbots don't think. They're looking for patterns in language, and so they want to find the best pattern matching language to respond to your question. And
Yeah.
it's like
And if you wanted to write an
that's
article about that, you could write an article
Mm.
about the fact that Grok clearly knows it's wrong, in the sense that it knows the right response to this is to apologize and say that they're working on it.
yeah,
And I
right.
think that that could be an interesting thing to report on in itself, but that was definitely not the framing of any of these articles. So
Yeah, yeah. It's like, it's so annoying because it is very much then. It's like if you believe that it's intelligent, then by willfully ignoring it, aren't you then believing that you're being the idiot? You know, it's
yeah.
kind of like you got yourself in a little bit of a catch-22 there, and I don't think you're right, no matter what.
Yeah,
So
because it's like, if your argument is like people who are up in arms about this are being too woke or whatever, and this is just free speech for whatever argument that they would make. No one is even making that argument; they're just kind of ignoring it.
yeah,
But
yeah,
if you were going to make that argument, then a counter argument might be that your anti woke chatbot doesn't seem to agree with that. It seems to think that this is a
mhm,
bad thing. So
yeah. So yes,
yeah, it's very,
no,
very deeply frustrating. And even as far as I know,
hmm
up to this point, they haven't even said anything about the paywalling aspect of it. They just quietly changed it such that now when people reply to Grok, it says that image generation is a paid feature. And it's just like,
hmm
how can you let this happen on your platform and just say nothing about it and not address it? As
yeah,
many, like, major world governments are like, this is an egregious problem and wildly illegal.
yeah.
It's like, surely even Elon Musk should not be able to do that.
And yet here we are.
Um, so yes, I hope something more changes about it between now and when this podcast goes up, and then we can all
Hopefully,
feel good about how it was not as bad as we talked about it here. I'm not super optimistic that that will be the case.
no.
But
Yeah, like quite frankly, it's like, I mean, it's like I'll put Apple bans X from the App Store on my bingo card, but I don't think it's gonna happen.
yeah, I kept being like, surely this just cannot continue going on without something happening. But I feel
Mhm.
like paywalling it will probably cut it down enough that they might be able to just ignore it from now on, which is really frustrating to me. So,
Yeah, but by the same token, I feel like the people most likely to pay and have paid accounts on X are the people most likely to be doing this, you
yeah,
know?
some
Yeah.
amount of it is going to be from free users because some amount of people would be too embarrassed to do this in something that has their credit card associated with it.
Yeah.
Hopefully some amount. The other thing that I saw was that someone was saying that like the engagement over the last couple weeks on X has been the highest it's been in a long time as this has been
Mm.
happening, which is probably
Hmm.
true. I mean,
Yeah.
some of it is probably people coming to see and do reporting on it, which is like,
Yeah.
is that the kind of engagement you want? Um, but also, I want to believe that
Mhm.
this is going to make more people abandon the platform than people pay for the service that weren't previously
Yeah.
paying for it. But I don't know if I can believe that.
Yeah. Well, it's like, because like I definitely have seen. I was looking into like, oh, how do I shut down my X account earlier? And there was actually like a very recent article that did have like, oh yeah, do you want to shut down your Twitter account now? Like this is how you do it.
Hmm.
So it's like it does seem like, and I have just like anecdotally seen among people I know more folks being like, this is really the time to abandon ship on this platform. Like it's
Yeah.
absolutely sunk. So it's like, so there is that piece of it. Like I do think there is probably, I would say like a decently statistically significant amount of people that are probably leaving. It's just that how much is that going to be offset by dude bros who are like, oh, everybody's coming after Elon. Clearly, the way to support him is to pay for a Twitter account so that I can keep using Grok to make these images. Because I feel like a lot of the people who are leaving are not paid users. Um, and in just
Yeah.
in terms of like the business model of the site, it's like they're just advertising views. And so it's like I don't think that it's actually going to be that big of a hit to the bottom line.
On the more positive side, in this Guardian article that's quoting um the
Mhm.
prime minister spokesman, it's also talking about various ministers discussing whether they want to leave X. So, and saying that
Yeah.
some of them are considering it and they're considering just like the whole party stopping posting on X and focusing on
Hmm.
Instagram or whatever. Um,
Yeah.
which like I think that would probably hurt them if there are some like
Yes.
real public figures that people like come to X to get their news from that are like, no, we can't be posting here anymore.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
because a lot of it, to some extent, is like it's still to a large part where current events that people still go to find because there's not a second solution for that yet. So like all of the big
Yeah.
public figures are still on Twitter and posting there, and so are journalists.
Hmm.
And maybe this finally pushes people past the threshold of just being like, no, we can't post there. I'm not going to support non-consensual deepfake pornography site, formerly known as
Yeah.
Twitter.
Yeah. Yeah, like, hopefully, like, yeah, I don't know, cause yeah, it's I mean, like, Blue Sky seems to be doing well, like, Instagram and Blue Sky in particular are this robust option as landing grounds for people who might be leaving, whereas I feel like when this initially all happened, like, when people initially were like, "Well, I can't use Twitter anymore," I think there was still kind of a question mark in terms of, like, "Well, where do I go?"
Yeah, maybe. I know Blue Sky
Mhm.
for left-wing people, Blue Sky is definitely the place, but if you're like
Yeah, yeah.
more centrist or trying to keep a neutral stance, I don't know that I'm leaving Twitter and posting only on Blue Sky now would allow you to do that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I would hope, this is me being overly optimistic. It's like, it'd be nice if, more centrist people also came to Blue Sky,
Yes,
but
that would be
yeah.
nice. Like, I think leaving deepfake pornography site formerly known as Twitter and going to Blue Sky is a perfectly rational thing for anyone to
Yeah,
do. But
yeah.
when we last talked about prediction markets, it was about the edit to the Russia-Ukraine map and someone who won some amount of money
Mhm.
by
Yeah.
doing it. In this case, there was a bet on whether Maduro would be deposed by some date, and
Mhm.
some person won $400,000 approximately from that bet.
Oh,
uh,
yeah.
which people are kind of upset about. Yeah, a newly created Polymarket invested $30,000 in Maduro's exit. The U.S. then took Maduro into custody overnight, and the trader profited $400,000 in less than 24 hours. Which is it insider trading? Did the person who did that know this was going to happen? It
Mm.
seems likely, again, which is concerning. I mean, everything about this whole situation is concerning, but
Yeah.
but talking specifically about prediction markets, because this is something we've talked about before, the fact that you could monetize very unpredictable actions by being an insider on them,
Yeah.
is especially when they're acts of war, just deeply concerning.
No, yeah, and it is, yeah, and it is very much one of those things. It's like, no, it's encouraged, like, because it's not the stock market. There's not those
Yep.
controls. It, like, actively encourages them, to like, have insider information to make bets based on that. It's just kind of like it's very frustrating, um, that this is a thing that is happening, and it's obviously war profiteering. It's very clearly somebody inside the administration who is just like, "I'm gonna make some money off of this," or, like, somebody inside the military who is like, "I'm gonna make some money off of this." But, like, unlike the one with Russia and the Ukraine, where it seems like it was somebody on the inside who actually, like, had the ability to modify, like, the map, this is I don't feel like this is a situation where it's, like, somebody who is making the calls
Mhm.
was they weren't making those calls because of the call sheet market, like, the Poly market, like, bet didn't actually change anything about how, like about how things panned out, about what happened, you know? It's not like Maduro was removed from power because of a poly market bet. It's just that, yeah, it's just like it's just kind of the grossness of, like,
Yeah, and I
somebody was
mean,
profiteering off of this
ho
actual act of international violence.
that can also be a little fuzzy, though. It's like, yeah, I don't think they've made the decision to, like, take this action because there was a poly market bet they could make money off of. This is obviously an extremely high-profile case, but there are probably less high-profile cases. Like, more of this could be going on, and in some of the cases, it could be affected by someone in the position to be making the decision, or at least be making some portion of the
Mhm.
decision that they should be making without taking into account how much money they can make on Polymarket on it. I don't think there was any good timing to do this, but if there was better timing that they didn't take because they wanted to win this Polymarket bet, you like
Yeah.
just like hypothetically, there could be any amount of stuff like that. So
Yeah, yeah, no, like, it's bad no matter what, but it's like, I don't know, like, I feel like it's a bit of a stretch to say that, like, the poly market bet had an influence in the timing of it. I think the actual bet is, like, January 31st, so it's not like they had a pressing deadline on the poly market bet.
yeah, that was just an example of a way that this kind of thing can happen, and that is not
Yeah,
necessarily like people are making war decisions based on Polymarket. Because yes, I don't think that's true, but like
yeah, yeah.
the incentive structure is not that like black and white necessarily. Is my point.
No,
So
yeah, that's fair, and yeah, it's bad no matter what.
yeah. On the positive side, I linked this X thread where it said that someone was going to introduce a
Mhm.
bill, and in fact,
Yeah,
as of about 6 hours ago, the bill has been introduced. Um,
fantastic.
so 30 members of Congress joined Representative Torres in introducing the Public Integrity and Financial Market Prediction Acts of 2026,
Mhm.
specifically citing this poly market bet. And basically, this would be a thing that prevents public officials from insider trading on prediction markets. So,
Yeah.
which just seems very non-controversial. So
Yeah.
it seems also
The
hard to enforce, though, because especially Polymarket, part of the thing about it is that it's crypto, and
mm,
this was an anonymous account, anonymous newly created account that made this 400K, and we don't know who it
yeah,
was. So
yeah.
even if this law had been in place, would we be able
We
to?
wouldn't have been able to yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's better than nothing because, like, if we did find out who it was, then they could be prosecuted. Whereas now there's not anything technically against the law about it. So, but
Mhm.
and at least sets an expectation of just like this is bad.
It does also then, like, because even if it's, like, anonymous, like, I don't know how much, user data or information Polymarket maintains, but, like, it opens the door for potentially, like, subpoenaing them for that kind of information if it's like, "We suspect this might have been, like,
Yeah, well,
a
not
public
like
official."
yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know how much KYC Polymarket does. I think not that much. I mean, it's a crypto wallet is what the only thing that you need to
Yeah.
have to trade on Polymarket. So like generally a lot of platforms have to do some amount of know your customers to understand that they're not doing like money laundering and enabling
Crime.
international crime, yes. But
Yeah.
I don't know how much Polymarket actually does there.
Yeah. If they have that information, then there being a law on the books means that it could be potentially subpoenaed. But yeah, if this is all just, you know, anonymous sock puppet accounts that nobody can really trace to actual people or actual IP addresses or what have you,
Hmm.
then it's like, yeah, then the law isn't going to maybe do that much to really stop it. But yeah.
Yeah. The other Polymarket related Venezuela thing
Mhm.
that is reported on is like, so there was that one bet, which was specifically Maduro being out um, by the 30th, as you said. But
Mhm.
there's also a bunch of things on whether the US would invade Venezuela. Um, and
Mm.
Polymarket has ruled that the US did not invade Venezuela. And therefore, none of those bets are paying out. And people are mad about that, which is
I mean, technically was not an invasion. Technically was just kind of a smash and grab.
that's their argument. I mean, their argument is that it wasn't even a military operation; it was a law enforcement operation. The military just happened to be there to help, which is like that's
Mhm.
whatever. Um,
Yeah. As much as it was like, a breach of foreign sovereignty and like many, many other problems with what happened in Venezuela, I would argue that it's, at least at this point in time, was not an invasion.
yes,
But yeah, like, but if you listen to Trump talk, it's like, well, maybe the invasion's, like
yeah.
not that
The
far off, but also who the frick knows?
yeah the quote says Polymarket on its platform website. The platform states that its bet refers to quote U.S. military operations intended to establish control, and adds President Trump's statement that they will run Venezuela while referencing ongoing talks with the Venezuelan government does not alone qualify the snatch and extract mission to capture Maduro as an invasion.
Yeah. Yeah, because as much as like Trump can say, "Oh, we're going to run Venezuela," but Venezuela has, in
Venezuela has
fact,
said no,
like
you're not. So
appointed. Yeah, yeah, and they have appointed their own, like the interim president, and so it's just like facts and evidence do point to no, you don't. At least right now, but
yeah,
who knows what's going to happen next in the whole Venezuela situation?
yeah. Then the other article I liked in here is like traders bet on the U.S.'s next airstrike target, which is from the Wall Street
Oh
Journal, and
God.
links whole bunch of markets. We've got likelihood of a U.S. strike on Colombia, on
Mm.
Cuba, likelihood that Iran's supreme leader is removed from power. That one has gone up lately, apparently.
Oh
Likelihood
boy.
that the U.S. acquires Greenland has gone up lately. It's at 16% now.
Oh.
Likelihood of U.S. strike on Somalia is at 83%, which is,
Oh, that's probably have to do with all the stuff in Minnesota that's going
yeah.
on right now, which, ugh, don't like that stuff.
No,
Yeah.
don't like that stuff either.
The thing about Greenland that always annoys me is like how much Trump doesn't seem to recognize that like Greenland is part of Denmark. And
Yes.
like Denmark's not just some like, you know, nobody country. Denmark's in the EU. Like, how is your brain so fried that you continuously fail to make this connection
Yeah.
that like Greenland isn't just some independent little island sitting out there. It's part of another like country, and it's a country that you are ostensibly allied with.
Yeah.
Like,
It's,
ugh,
it's like I feel like a lot of them, I mean, especially Pete Hegseth, but all of them feel like they're like playing war games, like they're playing
yeah,
Civ 5 with the US
or Risk or
military, like
something.
Risk,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
And it's just like you can't do that. You can't just be like, look, I saw some land, I want it. It's like, no, that's not
hmm yeah.
anyway.
It's like that is not how that works. And
Yeah, it's just insane.
mhm.
But like he keeps getting able away with shit, so I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. Either way, it's like, yeah, hopefully this will result in some sort of additional legislation and like honestly doing anything about the betting markets right now, because not just the like international like news betting markets, But, like, quite frankly, like, sports betting markets have gotten really bad lately, and it just, like, is
Mhm.
very it's really weird how it's like we seem to have gone from being in a stage where we're like, "No, we recognize that betting and gambling is really bad," and, it's like, we shouldn't allow that because it's exploitative and it makes it very easy for people to, like, lose their money and become destitute, to,
Mhm.
like, "Oh, no, but it's okay when these, like, corporations do it," you know? And so it's like, maybe this will, like, I don't know, light a bit more of a fire under some folks to be like, "No, we should really crack back down on, any kind of betting, including sports betting." So,
Yeah.
maybe. I can only hope.
I don't know. As mentioned, Trump Jr. is an advisor to both Kalshi and Polymarket. So,
Yeah.
and Truth Social is going to launch a prediction market. So they're big into the whole gambling thing. Because it's like, again, if you're the
Mhm.
casino, then then gambling's great because then you just make all the
Yeah.
money on it. So
Mhm. Yeah, it is deeply problematic when the government is the casino.
yeah, I don't like that the government is a casino.
I don't like it either.
I know. All right, data centers, in particular, demand response. Um,
Mhm.
so this I thought was interesting because as I was thinking about what my 2026 predictions would be and trying to come up some that were not just what everyone else was going to say, like AI backlash is going to affect the elections and things like that. One of them was the IPO thing that we talked about last
Mhm.
week, Anthropic and OpenAI fighting over it. But the other one that I came up
Yeah.
with that I was just like, well, I haven't done enough research on this. But then this came out coincidentally was that there will be blackouts or brownouts that are driven by data center electricity usage, or there will be a lot of sort of
Mhm.
like um, controversy over that. And I would expect, especially in Texas, because the Texas electric grid is special in many ways. Um,
Oh god, yeah.
so this article is from the Wall Street Journal again. The fight over making data centers power down to avoid blackouts. And basically, they're saying that, like, okay, if you're building a data center and you're asking, when can I hook this up to the electric grid? You're not allowed to hook it up to the electric grid until the electric grid is confident it will have the power to supply the data center. And so a lot of electric companies are being like, okay, well, you can hook it up sooner if you're willing to say, okay, but we'll shut some of our data center down if necessary, basically.
Mhm.
And this is really interesting to me. Like I sort of mentioned a little up front, my last couple of years at Amazon were a team that was working on home energy management. And
Mhm.
so I learned a lot about the electrical grid and how it works in a lot of ways. It's like, so the thing about electricity is that it's not like water or any sort of like resource where you could just like put it in a pile and then take it out. Like you can't bank electricity or you can't for free. You would need to have batteries to put it in.
Yeah.
So like if you're generating a bunch of power, you need things there right then that are going to take that power because otherwise you there's nowhere for it to go. So what that means is that there can actually be times when you're generating too much power,
Mhm.
and you have to actually like shut plants down, or or there can be times where you're generating not enough power because there's more demand than there is power being generated, and so there's a lot of question about like how do you sort of move the usage around. For example, in California, there's tons of solar power in California, and in
Yeah.
fact, there's often too much solar power in California, especially like midday when everyone's at work and the sun is up, and therefore people aren't running their appliances at home. And so there's like a ton of power, but no one is using it. Whereas everyone runs their appliances at like 7 p.m. when it's getting dark and there isn't that much energy. So a lot of the stuff that
Mhm.
we were working on Amazon is things like, okay, can we make a smart dishwasher or whatever, where you can load your dishes and say, run this whenever like electricity is cheapest and then go away. And then it'll run it at the time of day that electricity is cheapest. And there are a lot of systems around this, mostly not residential things, but that are called demand response systems, which is basically like if there's a lot of demand for electricity, people who have like electrical loads that they can scale up and down as needed without much difficulty, you can pay them or give them credits to like turn their things off in terms of high demand.
Mhm.
So that's sort of what some of what they're talking about with the data centers here is like, can you have your data center come on the grid, but only be taking power at the time when there's plenty of power, and turn it off when the demand is high in other places. And
Yeah.
a lot of people are pushing back against that. There's some interesting quotes here because it's like, you can think of data center of like, data centers aren't important, whatever. It's just a data center. Turn it off and then like let the real people have their power. But there's a quote in here where it's like, okay, but data centers do power a lot of critical things like medical systems and
Yeah.
things like that, etc. Such that if you just like turned off power, it would be bad. Um, so yeah,
Hmm.
like whether it's first responders or air traffic controllers that continue operating despite an emergency call, we have to be available for those customers, which is like, that's true. That's probably not the majority of your electrical usage, but
No.
that's also not something that people segment out right now. So that becomes interesting to me is like, can you have levels of service for your data center where you have the most essential parts that do not get scaled down ever. And then you have your demand response systems where you turn it off a little bit when
Hmm.
when needed. And it sounds like Google has been working on that, but no one else.
Yeah.
So that was all kind of interesting to me.
Again, like working with AWS for a
Yep.
really long time. Um, that yeah, like the only time the data center would lose power is like when we were having like act of God
Hmm.
hurricanes and stuff like that. It stays on all the time because that's sort of like the point of the availability of it, where it's like. Yeah, it's like if you want to be able to spin up a machine, it's like the machine needs to be there. Or if like especially if like you've got storage or like because it also does depend on kind of like what the I guess it depends on kind of like yeah, like what the computers in the data center
Yeah.
are being used for in a lot of ways, like for example, this is like just me getting off on a weird little tangent about data storage.
Hmm.
Like one of the products that like S3 had when I was there is Glacier, which was like
Yep.
very, very cold storage, very, very infrequent access storage. And it's like you could probably turn those machines off every so often and
Yes.
people might not notice because
If your
yeah.
SLA is a day or an hour, I don't remember what it was,
Right,
but
right.
then like, okay, fine. Like you can figure out how to do something if you need to, basically. Or even just
Yeah.
like if you're thinking about workloads, like when I
Hmm.
did Amazon retail stuff, like obviously there were servers that were like serving the website and those need to be up. But there
Yeah.
was also things where it's just like it was running our daily similarities build and that ran for like a couple hours every night at midnight or whatever. And that
Hmm.
didn't need to be at midnight. It's just like it's a job that needs to run at some time once a day. And
Yeah.
can you make sure that the things that are jobs that just need to run at some time and or don't need to be up all
Hmm.
of the time, run at the times when electricity is cheaper and more available.
Yeah.
And therefore
Yeah. It's
help.
like this like looks like needs to run and be done by this point in time, but
Yeah,
like who cares when it gets done as long as it's done by that point in time.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, which I guess, like, does kind of, like, present in that its way in its own way. It's like, yeah, there probably is a way to, like but, like, it's like, turn off the entire data center, maybe not, but, like, turn off sections of the data
yeah,
center, like, being able to, yeah, like, reduce the electrical load of the data center at times when the power is not really viable. It's like like, again, like, yeah, like, that seems actually very doable. It
yeah,
does seem very doable, which, like, it makes sense why Google is like, "Yeah, let's take into this. Let's look into this." Because it is also, it would kind of enable you to, like, have a more tailored cost structure
mhm,
to folks who have those, like, less critical, like, compute or storage or, like, those less critical, like, um, data center loads, and it would also, like, essentially, then it would allow you to kind of, like, premiumitize, like, that sort of, like, we will have you hooked up to a generator. We will make sure that you never go down kind of like mission critical like
yeah,
operations. And
and
so
like,
it's like there is like a pretty valid like business use case there to have
yeah,
that be
I
sort
was
of
gonna
like
say,
a
and it
thing.
AWS has some of that kind of pricing, like spot
Yes, yes.
instances and
Yeah,
like,
spot instances can go away whenever,
yeah,
versus like reserved dedicated instances. Spot instances was the market for AWS instances. It's like run it, but only run it when it costs me
yeah,
this much or less kind of thing.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. So it's like
yeah, which was
there's tons of precedent for that, which is,
yeah,
but it's none of it is like at the
But
right
like
level for power usage quite. So
right, right. Like it's like yeah, there's precedent for that, but like it's built like because yeah, like especially the AWS stuff, I think is like it's built with the approach of like when is the user going to want it, as opposed to the approach of like when can we keep it up,
mhm,
or like when can we power it. And so I think it's just like kind of requiring that paradigm shift in terms of how you are thinking about
yeah,
like
and
the
how you're building your systems
usage.
because like the
Right,
generally
right.
the server racks are not aware of the level of uh priority of the job that is running on it. Like that's just not
Yeah,
the way that things are architected now. But like as an
yeah.
engineer, that there's no reason that it couldn't be. Like it just requires
No.
some work. And I think given
Yeah,
the power
just some
constraints and the data center issues that are upcoming in the next 3 to 5 years or
yeah.
even sooner, I think that's going to be a super interesting area.
Yeah, definitely. Because yeah, because like again, to your point of like electricity is an interesting thing because it is like it's not storable. Yeah, it's like use it or lose it, sort of like a resource in that regard. Is also like then the like power generation capability of the data center itself, like how self sustainable can you make these? Because I know that AWS at least I think does a lot of
Hmm.
like solar power,
Yeah.
like on the roofs of their data centers and stuff like that, to like kind of yeah like offset some of that energy demand. But yeah, obviously, like if they don't have batteries sitting in the basement, that doesn't super help them at night or at other times. Again, like then to your point earlier, it's like power generation is spiky and it's weird, and it's like because
Yeah.
like that's one of the things like I think we're talking about this. I want to say on this podcast even like that's why there's still coal plants out
Yep.
there
Yeah.
that operate because
Because
it's
yeah, that
like
was I was talking about the peaking coal plants is because
yeah yeah
there and how that's one of the major data center impacts is that they are just
hmm
like running all the time, and therefore if there's a spike, you might need your coal plant again, whereas they previously were going to decommission them. And yeah, a lot
yeah
of these data
yeah
centers, this article is also saying, will have like natural gas or diesel generators as backups,
hmm
but just that's not going to last a super long time.
No. No.
um,
Yeah, and I think that that's pretty standard because, like, if I recall correctly, like, even back when I was in AWS, I think that the data centers had, like, diesel generators on backup standby, for, like, hurricanes and stuff like
mhm,
that because one of the biggest data centers for AWS at the time was in Virginia and
yep.
got hit by a hurricane.
But
So,
yeah,
that happens. Mhm.
it's a super interesting thing because it's like there are
Yeah.
there are times and places when electricity is free.
Mhm.
The question is how do we get the demand in the places where the supply is and the times
Yeah.
and places where the supply is. Um,
Mhm.
and it seems like there should be some better ways to do it than what we're doing right now. And especially if we're talking about things like AI training workloads,
Yeah.
which do not have to happen in any kind of timely manner.
No.
um, it's literally just processes that runs for days or weeks or months at a time. And
Yeah.
if you could run that only when power was free between 10 and 3 p.m. or California or whatever, like
Right.
that would be better for power grid. But that's not necessarily an easy thing to engineer. And also, you probably don't want to have a whole bunch of very expensive NVIDIA
Yeah.
chips that you're only running for 5 hours a day. Like, there's a whole bunch of economics around that make that not really work the way that I described it that way. But like, it is interesting. There's some interesting
It's
ways that the electric grid works that
yeah, like, it's a very interesting problem to sort of, like, face up to because yeah, because like, also, like, the additional part of it is, it's, like, one, like, being able to, like, identify, like, "Oh, which of these servers are, like, idle or running non-critical workloads or what have you, such that we could shut them down." But then it is also, like, that element of, like, we then need some kind of indication from the power company of like when do they need to be shut down, when they
yeah.
can be turned back on.
And
And so like
some of those
that's a lot of systems
yeah,
talking to each other.
those latter systems do exist already, though, because those are demand
hmm
response systems, and they do already exist in some places and work with
Yeah.
some like more industrial use cases, especially
Mm-hmm.
for demand response. And like a lot of that does exist, and there's a little bit even of consumer demand response where like smart thermostats can be hooked up to
mm
demand response systems, and you can get credits for like preheating your house early in the day
mm
or whatever.
Yeah.
Rather than using it during the peak hours, et cetera. And that's some of the stuff that I was trying to do at Amazon with our um our
Mhm.
devices. So,
Yeah. No, yeah, this is a fascinating little, I don't know, like, economic, like, microcosm
yes.
that yeah, it's like there's a lot of different solutions, and, it'll be interesting to see kind of, like, what develops in that space. Like so, yeah, it would have been more interesting to see kind of how it developed in a different administration because, like,
Yeah.
right now, I know that a lot of, like, the, clean power, like, subsidies and activities that were being taken by the government have been kind of cut back on
Hmm.
significantly. Like, this is one place just out of necessity that a lot of these companies are, like, doing something good, which is doing a lot of investing into renewable resources
Hmm.
because it's like, "Hey, we know we're going to need a lot of power, and guess what is a finite resource?" You know, it's like coal and oil. Guess what is
Yep.
an infinite resource is like wind and solar.
Yep.
So it's like if we
Nuclear
want
AI
to
people are super big into nuclear
nuclear,
too. So
yeah, yeah, which is like fine, it's fine.
yeah.
Nuclear's clean power for the most part. But yeah,
Um,
but it is one of those things where it's like, it's like there motivations completely altruistic? No, but it's still nice that we're getting a good result in terms of like, building solar panels on top of data centers and stuff like that.
yeah. Yeah. The current administration also, I think there was an executive order last year that was smoothing the way to build data centers by making it easier to get permits and stuff like that.
Mm,
And one of the things I was reading that was, I think, linked from this Wall Street Journal article was about how much like proposed data center build out there is for the next few years. And the answer is it's kind of hard to tell because a lot of places will submit their proposals to multiple locations, basically just
mm,
like to see which was going to be the easiest to get it through in.
yeah,
So you end up like multiple counting if you look at all of the proposals because they're probably not going to build all of those. They're just going to pick the location.
mhm,
But also there is just a lot of like data centers are not necessarily built in the place where it like would be best to build the data center. They're
yeah,
the place where it is easiest to get the data center built, which is the place that is least regulated and has the least NIMBY people with the ability to argue against it.
yeah,
So that ends up being in places without not a lot of regulation, and in poorer areas a lot, which is like not
yeah.
not ideal.
Yeah, definitely less than ideal.
Yeah, I think obviously data centers are going to be a huge issue, and it's like I don't want it to be
Mhm.
like data centers are bad because, like we were talking about before, it's like it's better to have a data center than doing all of that compute not in a data
Yeah,
center because the data
locally,
because the
yeah,
data center is more efficient. And
right.
there are ways to build data centers in which they are not bad, probably, or at least
Yeah,
like minimally bad. But like the
right,
incentive
right.
structure is not there for them to be done in that way. It's for them to be
Yeah.
done in whatever the easiest way is and cheapest. Anyway, it's interesting. It was one of those things where it's like, did I know anything about the
Mhm.
electric grid before I took that last job at Amazon? No. Did I find it immensely interesting as soon as I started learning about it? Yes. Sometimes you just
Yeah.
need to learn about a thing.
Yeah, yeah, sometimes it's nice to have a new little thing to hyperfixate on until you're just like, "Fascinating, my worldview has expanded in, like, hitherto unknown ways."
Yes.
No, yeah,
But yes.
it is fascinating, yeah, hopefully, like yeah, I'll be interested to see, like, what Google does, is
Hmm.
because it sounds like Google is the ones that are kind of, like, doing something on this front with it.
Yeah. So one quote in here said that data centers that build their own power sources and agree to disconnection during times of strain might be able to connect to the grid 3 to 5 years earlier than those who don't. The research was
Mhm.
funded by Google, it says. Um,
Yeah.
so, and it's like, yeah, that makes sense because again, like
Mhm.
the electrical power supply is not even. And
Yeah.
it's very different to say like we will have some spare power to give you versus we will be able to
Mhm.
supply all of the power that you need at all times. Like those are very
Yeah.
different things. So um
Mhm. Yeah.
and I do think even though it's a sort of major re-architecture of how these systems work, if you're trying to build a data center and you're trying to like get it connected sooner, you're going to have a big advantage if you can actually like prioritize your workloads and be able to do that. So,
Yeah.
um, which I think is super interesting. And I think the quote of like data centers are actually essential because they run like first responders and stuff like that. It's like that's disingenuous. Come on, sir. What percentage of the
Yeah.
data of the power usage of your data center is going to like first responders and medical systems?
Right, right. It's like, yeah, there's some, but not all.
Yes.
Absolutely not all.
And
And
it's
it's
like I
like,
understand like yes, that is an argument against like just flip the switch on the data center and turn it off. Like, that's probably a bad idea. You shouldn't do that. But like, because that is true, there is no possible way our data center could decrease our usage in any way is not true. So
yeah,
just takes a little bit more creativity and engineering and work. So it was encouraging to see that Google has done a few years of work here already, because that makes sense.
Yeah.
It says they are already, in fact, running some pilot demand response programs with several utilities.
Nice. Well, that is a nice little optimistic thing.
Yes, I was going to say that this one not the most depressing.
Not the most depressing, indeed. Some
interesting stuff about the electrical grid and ways that data centers might not actually be the death of our entire electrical system. Thank you for listening to the Fast and Broken podcast. I'm Carly Rector, and if you'd like to support my work, you can subscribe to my newsletter at carlyrector.substack.com.
And I've been Teresa Kramer. If you want my voice on your products, you can visit my website at teresakramer.com.
And if you enjoyed this podcast, leave us a like or a review. It lets us know people are listening and helps more people find the podcast. See you next week.
Bye.